Yeah, we are live.
Hello and welcome to Cyber Talk with Cyber GRC. I'm Vidya, your today's host, and today's episode is really special. For years, privacy, data protection, and digital rights have been discussed as buzzwords. But with the new DPDP rules notification, all this is suddenly real and urgent, actionable, and enforceable. To help us decode what organization must do now, joining us today is Love Johar, a veteran in ISO, GRC, and privacy framework. If you are a business leader, a compliance officer, or an inspiring aspiring privacy professional, this conversation will give you a clarity, direction, and a clear compliance roadmap. So let's begin with our first question: is what are the key drivers behind India in enacting the DPDP Act and notifying the rules now?
It's a very good question to begin with first of all. And yes, now finally the rules are out. So we have basically designed the rules into three stages, as per the DPDP Act. You can see on the screen. So basically, the first stage is where the establishment of the data protection board will happen, and rules number 1 to 17 to 21 are being enacted and published. And in the second stage, then consent managers rule 4 will be enacted. And similarly, in the third stage, we will be having the core operational rules, where we'll be talking about all the rights of the subjects, the data fiduciary obligations, and each and everything, right? So this is the manner, this is the phases in which the act is basically going to roll out. But now the good part is that we were waiting for it for a long time. It was passed in 2023, but till now people were thinking when it will be enforced. So now the enforcement timelines are already given. So now we know when will what happen. So we have clear timelines on stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3, and clear timelines now have been provided to all the organizations and everybody who is interested with this. But yes,
Who is
just to
covered? Which entities process?
yeah, yeah. So basically, anybody who is processing personal data for Indian citizens, okay, and for example, your phone number, your address, your name, your all these things are personal data, right? Your phone numbers, your email address. So any organization, be it public or private, if they are dealing with this personal data of any Indian citizen, they have to comply with this DPDP Act. Okay, that is the applicability. And the reason why it enacted right now is, Vidya, basically we need to align India with basically global privacy standards. For example, there is GDPR. So in order to support cross border data flows, digital flows, and we need to basically make sure that we support international trade. That is the reason why they have enacted it right now. And also you see explosive growth of digital data, digital services, the digital ecosystem being grown every now and then. So in order to promote that, government has now enacted this act actually. Okay, so this is to just answer you why it is enacted now, because they have seen explosion now in the number of data services being used and utilized in India at
Okay.
a very
What
larger
major
large.
rights do the rules?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. What major rights do the rules grant to data principals?
So data principals have a lot of rights in this case. Okay, for example, first of all, who is a data principal? Okay, any individual whose data you're actually accessing or utilizing or processing or storing is the data principal, right? Now, what are the rights of the data principal are? Basically, access to information about what data you're collecting for that data principal and how you are utilizing that data. Okay, the individual has complete right to know that. Second is correction of inaccurate personal data, modification of data. For example, let's say You have an old home address of somebody, but now the address has changed. Now the phone number has changed, right? So this correction right they have again. Erasure when data is no longer necessary or when consent is withdrawn, right? So they have the right to erasure basically. If they have withdrawn their consent, you can't use their data anymore, simple. Okay. And the right to withdraw the consent. Okay, they can withdraw the consent anytime
Hmm.
that they want. Okay, for example, tomorrow you're not happy with Zomato or Swiggy for that matter, just taking example, right? So you can ask them to basically make sure that they delete any data that they have on you. That is your right now as a data principal. Okay. And also you can have a nomination right, where you can nominate somebody else on your behalf. Okay, in case of dealing with with this personal data. For example, if you want to nominate your parents, want to nominate your spouse, anybody, like we can do that basically, right? So these are the rights of the data principal.
What are Okay. What are the core obligation on data fiduciaries and SDFs?
So
SDFs. Yeah.
yeah, SDF is basically significant data fiduciary. Okay, so data fiduciary and
Okay.
significant data fiduciary, first of all, try to understand that. Okay, I'll bring up a slide on the stage, Vidya, where basically we see the terminology, what all terminology being used here, so that everybody who is watching, they are able to get the idea. Okay, so first of all, what do we mean by personal data? Okay, so personal data and all this terminology is as per the new rules which have come out recently, right? So the new rules have
Hmm.
laid out the terminology. And personal data, if you see, is any data about an individual in India who is identifiable directly or indirectly by that data, right? And then we have processing. What does processing means? Processing means
Hmm.
collection of the data, storage of the data, using of the data, sharing of the data, transfer of the data, and deletion of the data. So all these five things come under processing actually. Processing does not mean you're only processing it. Processing also covers all these other parameters also. Okay. Then what is a data fiduciary? Like you asked, right? And the other one is significant data fiduciary that you asked. So data fiduciary is basically any organization that determines the purpose. Purpose means the objective, why you're collecting the data, and means of processing. Means how will you process this data? First of all, why you're collecting the data, and means of processing means how you will process this data. Okay, these
Hmm.
are the basically two things. If any organization is determining, is deciding, is making a note of, this organization becomes a data fiduciary. Data fiduciary is also called as data controller in the GDPR terms. Okay, however, in DPDP Act, we are calling them a data fiduciary. Now, second question that you had was, what is a significant data fiduciary? So, difference
Yeah.
between data fiduciary and significant data fiduciary is that significant data fiduciary processing large volume of sensitive data. Okay, large volume means more than, like, it's not basically defined in the act, but we need to understand large volume means, millions of records, with thousands of records, like it's a huge volume. Okay, there is no number given as such, but this is the definition. Okay, large
Yeah.
volume of personal data or sensitive data, or use of advanced technology like AI. If you are doing any of these, okay, for example, I'm just taking example, 1 million addresses, okay, and 1 million phone numbers, if you are using, you fall under significant data fiduciary. Or if you are using 10,000 Aadhaar card numbers, okay, or
Hmm.
passport numbers, then you fall under significant data fiduciary. Or if you are using AI, like we already discussed so much on AI, Vidya, remember? AI works
Huh.
on personal data. We have seen that, right? Or if you are using AI for any personal data for that matter, then automatically you become a significant data fiduciary. And now you should ask me, Vidya, what is the difference between data fiduciary and significant data fiduciary? Anyhow, both of them are processing personal data only, right?
Yeah.
But here the kind of obligations for significant data fiduciary are more than the data
Okay.
fiduciary. Okay, because you see the type of impact.
Because both of them are really similar to each other.
Exactly. Yes, you're right. So because of the impact significant data fiduciary can have, that is why the role of a significant data fiduciary is more critical and has more obligations than the role of a data fiduciary. Okay, and we'll see all
Just
those
because it
obligations.
holds
Yeah,
just
yeah.
because
Go
it
ahead.
holds mass amount of data.
Yes, it's because it holds mass amount of data also, and secondly, it holds a large amount of sensitive data also. That's why also. Okay, because in the data fiduciary is only working with the personal data, like name, phone number, address, right? Data
True,
fiduciary
yeah.
is not working with your Aadhaar card and passport, right? If I talk
Mm-hmm.
about your Aadhaar card, if you are talking about your passport, if I talk about your banking information, like your account number and all this is now your sensitive data, right? Okay, because if this data gets leaks out,
Yes.
you'll be impacted as an individual more, right? That's how. Okay, so
True, true. Yeah,
yeah,
can you
so now,
please share
yeah,
some of the obligations of both the
yeah, we'll discuss the obligations part also, but let me cover first definition since we have some more definitions on the screen. Then we'll come to the additional obligations for a significant data fiduciary also. So other definitions that we have are data principal. Okay, any individual whose personal data we are collecting, or any individual who we are relating to that personal data, okay, is the data principal in this case. Okay, consent is freely given, consent is specific, consent has to be informed, consent has to be unambiguous, and consent has to clearly show indication of agreement by the data principal. Okay, consent is also now two types. Okay, new definition has come in the new rules, which is verifiable consent. Now what do we mean by verifiable consent? Okay, consent that can be authenticated through identity proof, for example, again like Aadhaar card or passport, or or verifiable credentials, is called as a
yeah.
verifiable consent, right? But only giving a consent without giving any particular authenticated identity, that's only a consent. Okay, that is not a verifiable consent. Okay,
Okay, yeah.
so then you have user account. Again, user account is a new definition. Any identifier used by the person for onboarding or accessing a service, okay, is the user
Hmm.
account. Okay, it can be any identifier. Okay, that organization has to decide. Then you have child. So under the act, a child is anyone who is under the age of 18 years. Okay,
Okay.
so under the rules, you need to have a parental verification is mandatory if you are taking a data of a child under age of 18 years. Okay, then you have techno legal measures. Techno legal measures again is a new definition in the final rules, referring to technical and governance measures required for compliance. What all technical measures the organization is following, what all governance measures. Governance means creating policies, procedures, roles, and responsibilities. Okay, and technical means introducing access controls like access, the multi-factor authentication, and other types of access controls that you are actually implementing for compliance with this particular act. Okay, so all these are basically some of the things that people who are watching should know. So that is why we just wanted to cover that with you. So basically, additional obligations you were asking for significant data fiduciary, right? So significant data fiduciary has to conduct periodic data privacy impact assessment for high risk processing. Okay, because these are high risk activities that they are doing. Because of
Hmm.
that, they have to conduct DPI periodically, every now and then, for all the processing that they are doing. Okay, and they have to make sure that they have proper oversight on all the data that is being used in their organization, and they need to have cross border safeguards, periodic audits. All these are some of the obligations that the significant data fiduciary needs to have. And in case if they are using AI, like I mentioned, significant data fiduciary are using AI also, right? So then they need to follow the same principles, if you remember, ensuring fairness, transparency, accountability, responsibility, auditability, all those, principles will now come into play, okay, for a significant data
Yes.
fiduciary. But for an organization, I think the first part that they need to understand is identify whether they are a data
Mhm.
fiduciary or they're a significant data fiduciary, and build the obligations around that only. Otherwise, if you are doing it on a data fiduciary level and you are actually falling under a significant data fiduciary, then you will have different obligations. So you will not be, following the right route actually. Okay.
Yeah, before moving ahead, I would like to mention that anyone who is watching, either is it's an organization, a student, or just a curious person who wants to learn, you can ask question freely. We are here for you, just for you guys. So please ask your question. Please drop your comments. What topics you want next, and yeah, we can move on to our next question.
Yeah, with this.
What are the compliance timelines and phased rollouts?
So basically, like I showed all the three phases, right? If you see that these are the phases that we see on the screen, Vidya. These are the three phases in which the rollout will happen. So basically, rule number 1 to 17 to 21, these are effective immediately. Okay. However, the registration for consent managers, which is rule number 4, it applies after 1 year. Okay, after 1 year from now. That means November 2026. Okay. Then you have the remaining rules which are actually applicable from 18 months from now. So approximately you can say May or June 2027. So these are basically the timelines that we see on the screen for anybody who is watching. Okay. So these are the three types of phases and these are the timelines that we have. Okay. From the DPDP Act. These are as per the new rules that have been, announced. Okay.
Yeah. People can even take its screenshot if needed for future purpose. Okay. Next question we have is, how do the rules address cross-border data flow?
So India is not saying a blanket no to any cross-border data transfer. Okay, we are not saying no. That is a good thing.
Okay.
Okay, India is not
Yeah.
imposing a blanket data localization requirement like like
Mm-hmm.
like we have seen in other cases. Okay, so cross-border data transfers are allowed. Okay, we have to be very clear on this.
Hmm.
We are not saying that international data transfers are not allowed.
Okay.
We are not saying that cross border data are transfers are not allowed. It is completely allowed. Okay, we are not saying we are not putting a blanket statement on that. But now the conditions are there are some conditions that you have to follow. There will be a list of countries
Okay.
that will be allowed or restricted by the government. You need to follow the due diligence, and in those countries or those regions you can't transfer the data. Okay, that is one part. And secondly, there is a set of safeguards that will be announced that you need to add in for these cross border data transfer. Okay, these are the two complications with this. Apart from this, this is not something that is a completely no. We are completely open to that, and I think it's a very good thing, Vidya, because most of the privacy laws that we have seen so far, governments put a blanket statement on that data has to reside within the same country itself. So that is where India is open about that. We are not saying that we are not ready to do any data transfers internationally and all. So that is a very good thing.
Hmm. Okay. My next question is that what are the obligation for children's data and a person with disabilities?
Any organization processing children data or person with disability has to follow certain guidelines. Now, what are these guidelines? Okay. First of all, you need to have anybody who is falling under age of 18. You need to have their verifiable parental or guardian consent. You need to have that if you are processing their data, right? And basically, you need to have age verification mechanism also. For example, Vidya, you can tomorrow say that you are 16 years of age, but how
Hmm.
do I as an organization have verified that, right? So these are some verification mechanism that the organization also needs to implement, so that they can understand who all data principles are basically falling under this age limit, right? Only then you can put on the controls, if you know, if you have a verified mechanism for that. So that mechanism we need to have, okay. And then you
Hmm.
have basically, you know, profiling, behavior based targeting, all these are restricted on these
Okay.
these two environments, like for children, for, you know, for disabled persons.
Disability.
These
Yeah.
are yeah, exactly, these are you can't do that actually, these are restricted. You can't do profiling on children, you can't do behavioral tracking, you can't do targeted advertisement also on children, okay. It's prohibited,
Okay.
it's restricted, yeah.
Okay. But why
Okay.
so?
See, because children are easily, they're not grown up, right? So you can easily, divert them to these things. For example, if you keep on displaying ad of a
Hmm.
chocolate, tomorrow they might ask their parent to give them the chocolate, right? Because they don't, they're not grown ups, right? So that is why you can't target them for a certain thing again and again, right? That is why. Right. See,
Hmm.
as an adult, Vidya, you can make a decision what is
Okay.
right for you or not. But what about a kid who is in the first class? He can't do that. He or she can't do that,
Yeah.
right? Because they, that's why we call them babies. That's why we call them children, right? Because they are not having that complete mature thought process, right?
True.
Yeah. So that
What
is
are the
why.
breach notifications and
No, no. Wait. So let me just
yes.
complete. So that is why if you are
Yeah.
processing children data, if you are processing the, special disabled, category data, so for those particular, categories, you have separate procedures need to be acted. You have to have a verification workflow, how you are verifying those things, and you need to have more controls for these particular categories, okay. So you have to be very cautious if any organization is doing that, okay. Yeah, go ahead with that.
Okay. What are the breach notifications and retention erasure obligation?
So any data breach, if it happens to the organization, you have to notify the Data Protection Board of India, which is DPBI, okay, as soon as possible. That is the first thing. And detailed report of that breach has to be submitted 72 hours, within the 72 hours of becoming aware of that particular incident, right?
Hmm.
And this notification now must include certain things. Now, what are these new things? This notification must include incident detail, detailing the complete incident, what happened at what time, you know, how the incident got triggered, and all the each and everything. What are the consequences because of the incident? What all data has lost? How much volume of the data has lost?
Hmm.
How much was that volume personal data? Okay. What type of personal data was it? Each and every category of personal data has to be clearly mentioned to the DPBI, Data Protection Board of India. What are the consequences? What are the remedial steps that the organization is taking after the breach? And what are the recommended protective actions for the future? All these are basically now coming in the breach notification report that the organization will send to Data Protection Board of India. They have to do that.
Okay. Have Can you give a real life example for this? Have you experienced this thing, or have
Yeah,
you
yeah,
saw someone is
yeah,
experiencing
yeah.
this?
See, very simple. Let's say today you get a data breach, right? And you come to know of it by tomorrow, right? Tuesday you come to know. So as soon as you
Hmm.
come to know that there has been a data breach, you have
Hmm.
72 hours. That means it will start from Tuesday. So you have after Tuesday you have Wednesday, Thursday till Friday. So on Friday you have to report now, because if you pass Friday, then your 72 hours window is closed now. Okay, then you can be penalized.
Hmm.
Then they can penalize you also if you cross that window, okay. So
Okay.
as soon as you are certain, as soon as you are
Hmm.
sure that there has been a data breach, and in the data breach personal data has got leaked, immediately you have to inform the Data Protection Board of India, okay. You have to do that.
Okay. What practical challenge do organization face, and what next step do you recommend?
See, first of all, the biggest practical challenge that the organization will face is to understand what is their role. Like I mentioned, are they a data fiduciary or are they significant data fiduciary? Because as an organization, let's
Okay.
say if I have 10,000 employees, right? I am a very big organization and I am processing data of my employees. Anyhow, I am processing 10,000 data sets, right? So now it will become a question for me
Hmm.
as an organization, because see, volume is also there, data is also there, personal data is also there, and sensitive personal data is also there, because as an organization I know their accounts also, I have their account information also, right? So these are the questions will start
Yes.
troubling the organizations now. Okay, and that is why we are conducting such podcasts. If you have such questions, if you want to know what is your role as a data fiduciary or a significant data fiduciary, you want some consultation on that, please get in touch with us. Okay, we are here to help you. And then once you have decided that, okay, now you have made a decision, yes, we are a significant data fiduciary, then you should be clear about your obligations. Okay, and you now have to design your workflows accordingly. Okay, whether you are a data fiduciary or a significant data fiduciary, because see, Vidya, we see that the second phase will be there after 1 year, the third phase will be there after 1.5 year. But tell me one thing, if we do not start today, and it's a very big organization of, let's say, 50,000 to 1 lakh users, do you think they'll be ready even after 1.5 year? No, because these things take time, right? These are time taking processes. That is why government of India has actually given you ample time now to start immediately. Okay, so if you are still not starting, I don't know what the companies are waiting for, but I think now is the high time to start preparation. All the documentation has to be created. Okay, all the areas where they need to do a gap analysis, they need to conduct. If they need to map their personal data flows, where their personal data is flowing, what all personal data is flowing, what is the end to end data flow diagrams they have to create. Accordingly, they need to create the notices, privacy policies, all these things they have to create, the consent mechanism. Okay, technical safeguards, having proper encryption in place, multi-factor authentication, access controls in place, creating auditing, logging for all the personal data that is involved. Okay, in creating the incident response plans, like you mentioned. Okay, like how will you respond to an incident if you don't have an incident response plan, right? So all these things basically organization need to now establish. They need to establish a DPO role also. Okay, data protection committee also. All these things they have to establish. And I think now we have to start, because now the complete roles are there, the complete the rules are out, everything is now ready. Now I think the organization have to start working on it.
Okay. Thank you so much for your guidance, sir. That brings us to the end of this power packed episode. The privacy storm is here, and the organization that act early will lead with trust. A huge thank you to Love Johar for simplifying such a complex regulatory shift. And if you are looking for an hands-on DPDP readiness, practical templates, and end-to-end compliance support, reach out us or call on 7982247722. And this is Vidya signing off. Stay compliant, stay secure, and see you in the next episode of Cyber Talk with Cyber GRC. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vidya. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye bye.